state's coffers as well. State shared revenues is, again, monies, tax monies. It comes from several sources. State Tax Commission, then the legislature has also given a formula, and that's shared with the cities as well. As you can see, that we have yet to achieve the level that we had in 2007 of $820,000. We're still hovering just below $800,000. The trend is going up, so we hope that next year we'll at least be able to regain that. State liquor apportionment, this is something that virtually everybody who shows this slide says, at least in Idaho, liquor sales go up when recessions occur. This is somewhat of a deceptive slide. There was that drop-off in 2010. Some of these funds were utilized to pay for the Snake River Basin adjudication. When that ended, then they were put back into the formula that is paid out to cities and counties. So that amounts for or accounts for that drop-off in 2010, then the rapid return back through the trend line. But that trend line, as you can see, is kind of flattening out the last couple of years. So I guess you could say Idahoans are drinking less as the economy improves. So building permit revenue fees, this is something too, 2007, actually a height in 2005. Building permits have gone down somewhat. There was an uptick in 2009 when we had a large apartment complex that was constructed. But the trend line is down, but as you can see, in 2011, 2010, it started to improve. We are seeing some improvement. We've seen some commercial projects, residential still lagging, but as Bill indicates, there is I guess, a scarcity of residential lots, so that might spur some additional development, some additional plats, so on and so forth. General fund transfers, this is how money gets from the general fund, and the general fund, of course, is the repository for the unrestricted funds received by the city. Those would be property taxes, state share revenues, any of the large amounts that, or large accounts that you saw that I just went through. We transfer monies out to the streets fund to assist in maintaining the streets. Streets are also funded by gas tax and road and bridge tax. We'll get to that slide in a few moments. That's a special revenue fund, as is the Parks and Recreation Fund. Special revenue fund, for those who are unfamiliar with the term, are those funds that may get some funding from general fund revenues, but also have other sources of funding. That will be compared to an enterprise fund, which is our water, sewer, and sanitation fund, which are operated solely by the fees generated by those funds. Those funds are run like businesses, and we'll get into those funds a little later on as well. The 1912 fund, the Parks and Recreation Fund, you'll see an increase, or you did see an increase in the general fund transfer, again, as the property taxes are approved to make up for the loss of interest from the Hamilton Fund. Those property taxes are collected in the general fund and transferred out to Parks and Recreation Fund. 1912 Fund is a special revenue fund that supports the 1912 Center, including the contract for Heart of the Arts and the utilities and maintenance expenses for the 1912 Center. The Arts Fund, again, another special revenue fund. And Information Systems. Information Systems is an internal service fund. We have two internal service funds, Information Systems and the Street Fund, which we will talk about a little later. Those are two funds that provide services only for city operations. So they're all internal to the city. They are the revenues are generated within the city, and the expenditures are only on city related departments and needs.
Yeah, I think you said street fund. Did you mean fleet fund? Or did I miss
Fleet.
that?
I'm sorry. Yes, the fleet fund and the Information Systems are the two special.
I may have misheard.
The two. God, I'm tripping over myself. Two internal service funds. Thank you, Walter. Okay, major funds and departments. As we go through, we split these out according to the General Accounting Standards Board definitions. Don and I don't always agree on what those should be, but for our purposes, general government is around $6 million. Public safety includes 3 distinct operations. That would be the police department, the fire department, and the engineering department. Parks and recreation, other culture and recreation includes the 1912, the arts department, and certain portions of the Parks and Rec Fund. Transportation, water utility, sewer utility, sanitation. So as you get down to the enterprise fund capital outlay, which is a huge amount of money, almost $14 million, that, of course, is where the enterprise funds collect monies for those capital projects that they have that we'll talk about a little later as well. General government. We essentially, I think I wanted to go one more, there we go. General fund expenses by department, as you can see, this is what general government typically provides services not only to the city but to the city departments. So you can go through those different percentages and find out where the money is being spent. Non-departmental at $2,301,595 is the lion's share of the general fund. Those transfers are the transfers we just talked about to this special revenue funds. Public safety again, police, fire, public health, and engineering. I forgot to mention public health. As you can see, it is 0.1% of that amount of money. Police budget's around $5 million. That funds all of the programs of the police department. Fire, which is a bargain at $942,000, supports our volunteer fire department. We have 4 full-time employees and a half-time employee within that department. And engineering, public health, we contract with the North Central Health District Health Department. Have had that contract for years, and as you can see, it's very reasonable. It provides inspections, health inspections for restaurants, as well as providing services to farmers market as well. Special revenue funds, we talked about this a little before. Streets, Parks and Rec, Arts, and the HUD Fund. HUD Fund is Housing and Urban Development. It acted as a repository for HUD loans. HUD loans have fallen out of favor. I don't think we've had a new one in 25 years at least. So it exists only to collect those revenues or those loans that are being paid back, and we're just about done with those. Street Department revenue and expenditures, this is a year-to-year. So you can see that 2013, 2014 are naturally balanced because we aren't done with 2013 or 2014. You'll see some areas where the revenues exceed the expenditures. Of course, that's always a plus, but then typically in the following year, your expenditures exceed your revenues, which is not a good situation, except that we carry funds over from year to year, and what happens is Les Tyler and his crew will bundle, accumulate funds for a project. They can get a bigger bang for their buck by waiting a year and accumulating more funds, more economies of scale. So that explains why that happens. Like with the general fund, road and bridge tax is going up. This is our portion of the road and bridge tax. It is essentially an amount that is raised or lowered or stays the same based upon the decisions made by the North Latah Highway District, of which Moscow is within the boundaries of the North Latah Highway District. So as those commissioners decide that they are going to take their tax increase, our portion goes up by that same percentage. And we've been informed that the North Latah Highway District will take their 3% this year. Highway Users Fund is a gas tax. As you can see, there's a disturbing trend down. Gas prices are going nowhere but up. They're somewhere north of $3 a gallon at this point, $3.79, I believe, or somewhere around there. Yet the trend is still down. That's because, as we've talked about for years, Idaho's gas tax is a bit of a regressive tax. It is a tax that is not based on the price of fuel charged. It is a tax that is based on gallonage used. So as conservation vehicles become more efficient, great thing to do. However, that gas tax also goes down, which in turn provides us less money to keep our roadways in shape. There have been a couple of attempts, most notably by the governor, to change gas taxes, and there is a movement. There were at least two pieces of legislation presented at the end of last year's legislative session to do something about transportation revenues, and the gas tax was something that they were, the legislature was considering dealing with, and I suspect it will come up again in the upcoming legislative session. Street Department. Won't go through all of these. We do have a pavement maintenance program. As you look in your budget, it is funded $360,000, I believe. I haven't looked at it.
I think it's 350, 500.
350, 500.
But we were looking for more.
Yeah, we wanted to get it up to $400,000. Weren't able to quite make that, but it is increased over previous years. That is an innovative program that was implemented a couple of years ago to focus on maintaining the streets that are maintainable in Moscow, rather than spending the bulk of your repair funds on those streets that are totally not repairable and have to be reconstructed. We're seeing some dividends from that. Certainly appreciate the council's support of that innovative program. Capital projects. There is some money that is transferred from the street fund, even though it's a special revenue fund, to the capital projects fund, which is the repository for funds that are held for those capital projects, such as College Street, which the council authorized and was renovated last year. We had that project in the capital projects fund accumulating money. When we reached sufficient funds, then we moved ahead with the project.
Which just won an Orchid Award.
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah.
And so you can see those three projects, the North Polk safety improvements, ADA ramps, and downtown streetscapes are what that $90,805 will be spent for. Total expenses in the street department are around $2.7 million. And Tyler, if you can remind me, how many miles of street do we have, or less?
Centerline miles, about 80.
So about 79 miles of streets and that much alley, I'm sure, as well.
About 7 miles of alley.
Okay. So a lot of linear feet of street that money goes to maintain. Okay, Parks and Rec Fund, our other large special revenue fund. Again, you'll see that revenues exceed expenditures in most years. 2013-14 are estimates yet. There are some movements up and down. That was because we used to fund capital, swimming pool, that sort of thing, by putting money into this fund. There's been some movement, bookkeeping movement back and forth. Some of those funds that had previously been in capital were actually maintenance funds, so they were transferred back to this fund. But suffice it to say that the trend line is increasing as those programs increase, and the increase in the tax subsidy from the general fund, again, is partially because of the Hamilton Fund's inability to maintain its interest revenues. Okay, we talked about this. I don't know that we need to go into it any further. I thought Walter's explanation was right on. There's $108,000 of property taxes that the council has authorized to make up for what has turned out to be a difficult time in the recession, a difficult time that was compounded this past year when Don presented the information to the City Council that it made more sense to pay the $2.2 million of certificates of participation debt back now rather than wait, because we were losing funding. We would actually have gone into debt or would have lost an additional, I believe it was $800,000 out of the Hamilton Fund had we carried it to term. So that explains the additional $108,000. Pool revenue expenditure is also something that the council looks at and watches fairly closely. Eric Newell, I believe, is here, our pool manager, recreation supervisor in charge of the pool. You do see some expenditures exceeding revenues, and that is typical.